All right, welcome to N3rst3dloops. We're doing, I think, a summary to the last part, what experts do, and we're going to go with help them move forward, remove blocks. And I'll turn it over to Alex.
Cool. Yeah. So starting with this helping them move forward, removing blocks. This is of course, the Badass Making Users Awesome book. So we start with the question: how do we help users keep moving forward? And it might be you might think easy, right? We compel them with our promises and goals and keep pulling them forward, right? But not so fast. Are we sure that's the best way to go? The path to creating badass users isn't necessarily all about pulling them forward. And keeping positive messaging and goals is, of course, important, but our users are already motivated by a compelling goal, and that goal is that they want to get better. So the real question is, what makes them stop? It's not what pulls them forward, right? But what is stopping them from their own goal, right? We know they're motivated. We know that they are taking steps to get better, but then they stop, right? So what can we do about it? And here's this little image. I liked all the imagery they had in the book for the chapter. So this is a derailer magnet, as we're going to be calling it. We have our pulling magnet, right? And then we have this derailer magnet here on the side. So the common response, right, to how we can get them from stopping is like, let's just make our magnet bigger, right, and stronger. So we make it even more seductive. And, the idea being that, hey, that should work to overpower what's causing them to stop, right? If our magnet is just more seductive and larger. Right, so we double down on that forward pulling magnet, right? And we do things like deeper discounts, promoting more enticing benefits. And to quote the book directly, we turn the seduction dial to 11. But that's not really solving the real issue, right? It assumes that our users had motivation and then they lost motivation. But the question the book poses is, what if it's not a motivation problem at all, right? Our users already took the first step. They want to be better. And it's likely that we don't have a problem in which more external motivation is the answer. So what we really need to do is we need to figure out what is stopping our users, what actually stops them. So what stops our users hurts us way more than amping up our forward magnet, right? So, we can amp up our forward magnet as much as we want, right? But the railer magnet here on the side is always going to be hurting us way more than our forward pulling magnet can offset, right? So we need to figure out what pulled them off the forward path to begin with, right? So what's more powerful than what motivated them to start on the path? And so the true way to help our users move forward is to focus on reducing what stops them. So here's an image from the book that shows, that there's this gap here, right? And it's actually the gap that we need to work on. It's not our forward magnet. That's usually already strong enough to compel our users, right? It's this gap that we need to work on. So they took the first steps. They'd like to be better, but then they get derailed. Something is derailing them. What that something is lives in the gap, which we just saw in the photo, between what's already motivating, compelling context and where they are now. So what causes this gap, and can we do anything about it? So the book poses that there's two big derailing gaps, right? And the first one, which is my favorite, is the gap of stuck. So the gap of stuck is a guaranteed pain zone. So the example that is used often in the book is snowboarding, right? So if you're picking up snowboarding, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to suck your first time going out, unless you're just some amazing person. But pretty much guaranteed you're going to suck, right? So people don't really need more convincing about the benefits of being an awesome snowboarder. Right? It's pretty self-apparent. You get to look super cool going down the mountain, right? So we need to help our users through the painful gap between their motivation and goal of being like a super badass snowboarder and their super early experiences in the suck zone, right? Which is in this gap of suck, if you see here. What they wanted was to going down that mountain, but the reality is that they are face planting in the snow and hurting themselves. Another kind of gap there is the gap of disconnect, right? So the gap of disconnect is where our user loses the connection between our compelling context and the tool. So for example, if we're offering of our products, like a camera, right? Our sell is like, whoa, look at all these amazing photos you can take. You'll be a professional photographer, right? But then once they actually get our camera, we lose them in the context, right? Where now we're having them read these manuals and having them learn the tool, right? So before they buy or join, we're showing them the context. This is where the motivation lives. That's the context of look at you possibly being an amazing photographer. And then after they buy or join, in this case, the camera, we're all about the tool, and this is where motivation dies. So they were motivated to take the good pictures, they pick up our manual, and now they're not motivated because they're feeling stupid. So here's a cool image I got from the book, Death by 1,000 Derailers. Sort of goes through some of the most common derailers. I suck at this, why am I even doing this? The worst FAQ ever. Is it supposed to be this hard? This can't be right. Either I'm stupid or this tool is, nobody answers my questions, it's tedious. These are all sort of really common things the book poses. So what happens when we can't shrink the gap, right? So, we can't fix this gap, right? Like snowboarding is hard the first day, and it is very unlikely that we can change that. There's just, that's true. We can't close the gap, but that doesn't mean that we can't help our users while they're in it. So, if we can't remove the gap, the goal is to make the gap less of a big deal, right? We need to help our users forward despite this large gap. So first we need to understand what derailers have in common. So if we look at all these derailers, what do they have in common? These are the same things before. I suck at this, I'm confused, worst FAQ ever, why am I doing this? If we can find a common attribute, then maybe we can find a common solution. So there's a direct quote from the book, right? The common attribute is we're not there with them when they're thinking and feeling this. And if we were, we'd be able to do something about it, right? So the idea being that we're not there when our users have questions, right? And when they're having doubts. If we were there, then we might be able to help them, right? So they can ask questions and make bad faces, but we're not there to notice and do something about it. We've removed essentially their ability to communicate to someone who can help. But then imagine if we could be there to notice when they have a question or when they're looking confused. We need essentially what we need to figure out is what would help them if we were there. Right? So what might help the most for our users is to acknowledge how hard some of these things are. Whether it's snowboarding or learning how to use a camera, our users undoubtedly will struggle, right? So if we look at snowboarders who continue on the second day, it is likely that they had someone in their life who reminded them that, dude, everyone sucks the first day, everyone. But the second or third day, everyone suddenly gets so much better. Google it, it's totally a thing. So in this case, this was a snowboarder's trusted friend who let them know this, right? So usually when we know something's going to be painful for our users, we try to emphasize the rewards, right? So we're saying, we know snowboarding is going to be like super difficult, crazy difficult, right? So instead of being honest with them, we say something like, oh, snowboarding's so awesome and it looks so cool flying down the mountain. We really try to emphasize what their reward will be in the end, right? But instead of doing that, we should actually be sending messaging that faces the reality that snowboarding is difficult, but it could get better. So how does acknowledgement actually make it better? I mean, if they already know it's hard, then what does acknowledging do? This image on top is from the book, and it's what they think, which is oh, I must be an idiot, but what's actually true, that this part is hard for everyone. So how does acknowledging make it better, right? So our users stop when they're struggling, right? But it's not because they're struggling, it's because they didn't know that struggling is appropriate, right? So they don't know that they are exactly where they should be, and we have not educated them that everyone in their position struggles. So we should just be honest, right? And tell them that it's hard. So if they don't know it's normal to struggle, they have no reason to think it'll get better, right? Nor will they have any reason to feel that this struggle's worth it, right? So if they're essentially, if we've not educated them that struggling and is like a normal reality of where they're at in their process, then they're just going to feel either like they're stupid or that our product's stupid, or they're just not going to understand that where they are at in their process is completely normal, right? But if we're honest with them and we say, here's the problem, you're going to struggle with this. It's not you, it's us, or it's the reality of the thing you're doing. But here's what will happen. Their confidence will go up, right? And also their trust will go up, both their confidence in themselves, their confidence in us as a product, and their trust in us as a product as well, right? So we don't even need to be perfect. The book started going on, right? It's like even if it's unnecessary pain caused by our product, right? Say something like a poorly written FAQ or manual, as long as we're honest about it, right, and let them know that it's not them, then it's not like we even need to be perfect. They just need us to be honest, essentially, right? So yeah, I got a little hard on myself, right? But if we have something like a bad user manual, it's much worse to make the user think that the manual just works fine for everyone else, right? If they think, if we don't let them know that, hey, this is a struggle, then they'll think, oh, this is just me and this works fine for everyone else, right? But we can fix the problem immediately without actually fixing the manual, right? By just telling them, right? By restoring confidence in our user, we free up more of their cognitive resources to actually think and do more, right? To actually think and do more towards their goal rather than thinking and doing more towards why this isn't working for them. So the book goes into a whole section on anticipate and compensate, right? So we need to anticipate the questions our users might ask if we were next to them when they use our product, right? And then we need to compensate for their inability to show and tell us what they're experiencing, right? So it's sort of obvious that on a snowboarder's first day that they'll struggle, right? That's pretty easy to see, right? But how can we compensate for more difficult things like software, right? How can we possibly anticipate that, right? And what the book poses is that we need to err on the side of compensating, right? So even if we're not sure of everything that we'll need to compensate for, it's much better to assume types of questions, right, are happening even when it's not, than to not acknowledge it when it is. So essentially, it's much better to overcompensate, right, and try to answer tons of questions and try to move them through the process than to not say anything and just not acknowledge that there might be issues, right? So in terms of how we can tell them, right, there's, suggested that we just try to tell them as many ways as possible, right? So, via user manuals, marketing, support sites, user groups, context blogs, videos, testimonials, case studies, training sessions. We really just, anywhere we can really hammer in, our messaging of trying to walk them through these problems and their struggles is just better for us, right? So in conclusion, I think the main bit of this chapter was just to tell them, right? And when I say just tell them, literally just be honest with them. Tell them if there's going to be struggles. Tell them if there's going to be problems, and try to just be real with them and help everyone through, right? If everyone who's stuck with it has gone through what you're going through right now, it's typical and temporary, right? That kind of messaging, that's a direct quote from the book. And I think that kind of messaging, through our user process, is the kind of messaging that we should be looking for. And yeah, I think that's it. Search for a chapter.
Yeah, I would have liked. No, I did not read ahead. I would have liked more examples of telling. I feel because I feel having taught a number of subjects. That's not where I'm there in person. Go, you know what? This is normal that you can't do this. And that in my mind, well, at least from the situations I recall, I don't recall that overly assuring. Like people still get stuck in that suck zone. Like, God, I suck. So no, everyone sucks here. But I'm saying that's yeah, but I still suck.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm not sure if I haven't read ahead to the next chapter, and I'm not sure if the next chapter gives more examples, and if this was a chapter just sort of facing the reality on you need to acknowledge that. But in terms of they went pretty heavy on the snowboarding analogies, right? Telling the snowboarder that what they're facing is difficult, right? But in terms of what you're asking for, more examples, the book didn't really give that many examples, and I'm not, and like I said, I haven't read forward to the next chapter. I don't know if anyone else has, but maybe in the next chapter they start going through more examples of how you would help move them through. I get what you're saying. Just acknowledging maybe isn't enough, you know.
All right, so I'm trying to look for this salsa dancing hell graph, the famous salt scene that Rob is suggesting. I want to see this one. I'm gonna share my screen, I guess. Where is the... Oh, no, I have to move it out. All right, let's do that one. And we're going to share application window. Aha. All right, so here we have the infamous graph. When time is key, beginner's hell. Early in time, she would rather dance with a man at her same level, a man who's been practicing for a much longer period of time. And convinced. It's a male, female. I'm trying to make. So females have a linear one, and the males have that sort of hockey stick. When he continues best time, his will improve an exponential rate. He will eventually become a better dancer than most females. Female plateaus. All right. Is this the right one, Rob? And what's our insight of this one? Of course, Rob should figure out how to get his microphone working. Because the text, yes, trying to. They share this with men trying to learn to dance. Okay, payoff is. All right, so I'm gonna. I guess you guys can see, but I'll read out for those. Payoff is getting dance partners. Yes, they share this with men trying to learn dancing, convince them to work through suck. Oh. Okay. Okay, well, good to know. I'm trying to figure. So, can anyone think of a product that actually does this? That would be my question. Like, can anyone actually think of a product that actually? Oh, there you go. Your answer is no. People tend to sell quick fixes. Like, I'm trying to figure out the example of. All right. For example, I often am intimidated by various music recording software.
Right.
Where I go, I'm excited, and I get in, there's 5 million buttons, and blah, 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 this, and despite learning to use actually the actual rack-mounted equipment, I still get intimidated by the 5 zillion sliders, say, in Logic, or actually, or recently I bought something that allowed me to download Cubasis or whatever. Oh my God, so many things, so many dials. I'm wondering how we would make that better, with a little clippy coming up saying, hey, it looks like you're trying to record, but let me ease you through how easy this is. I'm trying to figure out. In the case of software like that, they do come with manuals, no tutorials. I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, well, another one that they mentioned was community, right? And I think a lot of those, like, I don't know how, in that specific example, I don't know how active, like, what was the software's name?
Logic is the big one, but it's Cubasis comes. You buy like MIDI equipment, and then they give you like the license to Cubasis, the free version, which
right.
Is, and but it's one of those definitely. It's like, oh, you definitely hit the suck zone, or not even the suck zone. Just the when I look at all the dials, I go, God, like I'm willing to do the work, but I just go, oh my God, I'm gonna have to work so hard to understand all these things.
Right. Right.
And so I'm not even sucking yet. I'm looking at the difference is I think because I have invested the time to learn things, I know right up front, going, oh man, it's going to be a while before I can work this.
Right. Right.
And then life happens, and I go, I don't know, I can't get more time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I already know the formula works. Well, if I did like 30 minutes of this day, like 4 or 5 times a week, I'd be pretty good at whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
where n is a reasonable period of time to get good at with that much time. But even then, I'm going, oh, I got to find time to do this, and so I'm struggling with the motivation to actually make the time, which I suspect is slightly different if you're not already understanding what it takes.
Right. Right. If you're not someone who's gone through the process of learning other similar things, maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is key. Like this is the part where we're just talking about here. This is how to be a good trainer. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Which I find very interesting. But I'm looking to say, well, okay, well, who's good at doing this? I don't know. Anyone have any product software thing that they've gotten pretty deep into that they can pull an example? It actually doesn't have to be software, but that's us. It could be some physical product.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, actually, let me think about this. I bought some stuff to. It's kind of this manual self massage gizmo. You're supposed to hook it up to a door, and then you can lean on it and some things. And I know they have some videos. I don't know about the suck, but they have a bunch of videos. There's and actually apparently there's a pay thing that you can get really intensive stuff. So I can see they're trying to help with the user. And actually, and I look at this one. I want it to work. At which point I could become said badass user, as far as going telling everyone, hey, my shoulder's been jacked up for 20 years, but I got this gizmo and it got better. And I could easily be the word of mouth guy if it worked.
Right.
Unfortunately, my stumbling block on that is it won't fit on any of the doors at home or work. So I'm stuck. I can't actually use the device until I figure a way around that one. But I'm trying to figure. That would be my situation where we could look and see how the lessons in the book are applied and whether I could be that. The key difference though is I'm already pre-motivated to want to be that badass user.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's actually not that hard to use, except that I can't get out my door.
Right.
But I'm trying to figure out what other real life examples.
I mean, if you look at even like some of like the coding platforms like Team Treehouse or something, like I think maybe they do a pretty okay job, right? Like the users come in with their motivation of wanting to learn to program, right? And then they break it down. They segment it pretty well, right? They have like tracks, so that's like they really like step you through. And I think the whole time they have messaging, because it's for anyone who's not familiar, it's like video courses, right, for programming.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time they have messaging that like, oh, this is difficult, this isn't easy, and I don't know. I think I don't know if that's like if you can directly apply, but I think they do a pretty good job. Team Treehouse in particular.
Mm-hmm. The guys that did the Try Ruby thing, they made it into a course, Rails for Zombies. Those guys are real good about trying to beginner-friendly eyes things.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if we're going to get a chapter. Some of those I like, but and then sometimes I'm going, okay, this is too much beginner right. Like there's like the level that's useful for a beginner is like kind of boring to someone who's experienced.
Right.
So I think there's always an issue with that where, oh, this is kind of cute, but I'm now bored of the cute things and let me get to the action.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something that makes sense they would address where if we're going back to focus on badass users, some of these guys will be like badass in other things already.
Mm-hmm.
At which point the help get the beginner badass is kind of like, I'm tired of this.
Right.
Sort of deal. Okay, any other discussion? Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I see that this applies to a lot of places in life and in products. And I also believe that people are willing to pay, or well, certain group of people will pay a lot of money for things to be easier. So I think does a really good job at having like cameras and home security, like cloud type solutions. And they may charge twice as much as someone else, but because it's so darn easy, people buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Um,
That used to
Another
be the
thing is
Apple thing.
Apple versus Android. A lot of people think that Androids are difficult to use. A lot of people believe that Apples are easier to use. I don't necessarily agree with that, but if you look at it in that terms, people are willing to pay for something that is just like easy. Um, you know, if you could just walk into the Genius Bar, who cares if it's $1,000? You don't have to ever think. They take care of everything for you.
Mm-hmm.
So people are willing to pay for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's, that used to be the case. Apple used to be way ahead. I don't think it's so much the case.
Also, when I say that it ties to life, although you know, I don't know if this whole concept of like, um, what is it? There's this magnet. Can you go back to the slide? It was like the magnet of like what's good versus the magnet of what's bad.
Yeah, Johan, I'll show
That's
you.
the way I visualize this or whatever. For some reason, I tie it to a lot of things. It's almost like you could be really nice a lot of the time, but if you're an asshole sometimes, you're gonna like what I'm trying to say is it's making more money doesn't necessarily get you more money. Preventing from spending money. I tie this to things in life.
Mm.
Here's our minor. Is it this one?
Yeah. It's like making it more seductive isn't necessarily going to help. That's what the chapter is saying. But getting rid of the problem is more useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even just like acknowledge. I think a lot of the chapter was like acknowledging the problem, like that maybe the problem isn't something that you can even get rid of. Yeah. I mean, I sort of get what Forrest's saying, where it's like is acknowledging it enough. Like, if I know snowboarding's super hard, I don't know. Does that? But yeah, I guess.
Let's since Brett brought up Nest, let's talk about like Alexa, because once you have that home connected stuff, we connect everything to Alexa,
Mm.
and I think everyone on the team has one. Has anyone been like, oh, I saw this video and the guy's doing all this crazy stuff, and I tried to set up and I gave up? Like, is that something that happens? Could they do more? I mean, I think everyone, and again, Scott was a good example. Everyone would be talking about like Alexa on like the Hangouts or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and of course I would talk to him offline about it, and I eventually got him to try, and then he was hooked, and he went from must have had at least 3 devices within a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I still think, and he would ask me, but he had the in-person person that when they were talking about the snowboarder's best friend, he would go and ask me, hey, so how did you set this up? I got this now. What can I do with it? Um, so in that case, I guess I was playing that role sort of
Right.
as the shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
Are you asking like if Alexa is difficult to set up, or?
I'm trying to find real life examples of like who's actually doing the stuff you're asking. Because I think about like Alexa, like I get I don't know if everyone gets it, that Friday Alexa tips email from Amazon, which I used to look at a lot in the beginning. But I think on myself, I independently would Google on like YouTube and look for what people were doing. So I don't know how much actual support they give. I don't think there's ever an acknowledge like it's difficult because it tries to be easy. And I gotta say, like with the show, I don't know if anyone has an Echo Show, but when you plug that in, because it's got the video screen, they really step you through. Here, do this, do that. Now you're ready to go.
Right.
Which is really actually pretty good. It's definitely, I think, better than the hockey puck ones where you're pulling out the little cardboard fold out thing to figure out how to first connect it.
Yeah, I wonder if that's like, I'm trying to like, is that them acknowledging like a problem is difficult though, or is that just like good design, like good instruction?
Yeah, I mean that gets us going, but then going the next step, I don't know.
It's weird because like does Apple acknowledge how tough stuff is? Like, is it even appropriate to like while you're in the middle of trying to learn how to send a text message for the first time, having a pop up that's like, "Hey, it's tough to send a text message." You're not.
Right.
I feel like it's
It's almost like condescending or something.
I mean, Apple tries its best to make everything intuitive and easy.
Yeah.
So I don't know if like acknowledging something hard might be a cardinal sin. At least for their I think what I'm looking for. Their day-to-day stuff. Like if you buy Logic, that's a complicated piece of software, which they actually put out. So it's not like so if we're talking Apple, they actually put it out. But I think anyone who makes the upgrade from GarageBand to Logic is pretty much prepared for, I can't do what I want in GarageBand, so I gotta fork out however much Logic costs these days,
Mm-hmm.
and get the advanced thing. So I think by the time you've bought Logic, and because you get GarageBand for free on your Macs, you've hit the wall with GarageBand. Look, I can't do this. I need to upgrade. So you're already, I guess, in badass user territory.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's interesting. I can't think of many examples of companies doing this, acknowledging.
right, that's kind of where I'm going. And I go, so she's pointing this thing out, but who's actually doing this?
Yeah, I'll be very interested to read in the next chapter. I think after this group's done, I'm gonna start reading ahead. I don't know if in the next chapter, I don't even know what the title is. If it's like gonna go into more detail about like these approaches. I mean, it's still in the same group chat, like moving users forward or whatever the hierarchy chapter is or whatever. So I don't know if she's going to like explain that further or not.
Next one becomes progress and payoffs.
Mm.
Mill's saying how it doesn't seem to pay off well for people to acknowledge in a marketplace where quick fixes are the normal pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is funny though. As a child, I skied for like 10 years and then I snowboarded, and because I knew the snow so well, I thought it'd be easy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, it was terrible. Everyone does suck at snowboarding the first day.
Right.
I still stuck at snowboarding. Because the same thing happened. I was never a great skier, but I was okay. And then I tried it, and I just fell down the hill the entire day. And I never snowboarded again.
Yeah, definitely.
It was surprising because I skateboarded too. It's like, I skateboard, I skied. This should be
Right.
tolerable. No, I was just eating snow.
Mm-hmm.
Not used to, I think, your feet being static.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Don? I didn't see if Rob sent us more texts while we were.
No, I think that's it.
Yapping over this. Yeah. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, thanks. Who should do the next one? We rotated back. Should it be me?
Diego.
Diego has gone somewhat recently, right?
Yeah, but he always chooses everyone else, so we're just gonna Diego.
All right. I guess so. Well, it might be hard, with all his off.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind. We'll talk about it.
All right, I'll pick up the next one, and we can continue our rotation. All right. Well, thanks for coming. Have a good day.
Thank you. That was good.
Don't fall on the slopes on your snowboard, and it's okay because everyone can't snowboard.
Yes.
All right.